Welcome to Conscious TV with Tom and Ramon. Go over our business here first. Make sure you visit the website, conscious-tv.com. We've got a lot of new things going on there. Our forums are going to become active. I've got a little bit of help from Kathy. Thank you, Kathy, so much.
Thank you.
So check out the forums. I'll try to make the link to the forums a little bit more visible on the page. I'll get at that when I have some time. And we also have the new paradigm page that we're putting together, which has got just a ton of really good ideas on there. So make sure you check that out. Also, Ramon and I are blue collar guys. We work for a living, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we really appreciate any donations that can be dropped our way. Besides that, Ramon, who in the heck have we got tonight?
Today we have a special person. Let me start off by saying that she's a starseed in full germination, emerging. Jana was born on Earth, a seer, 30 years ago. She's an indigo adult evolving into crystal conscious artist, clairvoyant, and gardener. Jana has been in tune with her extrasensory abilities since birth and has had a vast array of experience. Let's welcome Jana. Yay!
Hi, Jana.
Hi, Tom.
Hi. So let's start off from the childhood.
Yeah. Well, first off, I want to just thank you guys for doing this amazing work and for following your inner promptings and all promptings to do the work that you're doing. Because it does take a bunch of brave mystics to do this work, and I just want to give you props for that.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been a really interesting life thus far. I try not to dwell too much on my story, but it continues to come up. And I think that in tradition, and in a lot of indigenous cultures too, is that they did take the time to sit around and to even weekly, sort of a weekly event, to sit down and tell your stories and to share. And I think that's kind of what's going on here, except we're dealing with more of a digital fire. But yeah, as a child, I had a lot of out-of-body experiences. I had a lot of beings coming to me that, and the only reason I know this is because the cognizant memory of it was ever present until I became a teenager and had to really start to acclimatize to social conditioning and realize that what I wanted to talk about was just not what wanted to be heard, or it just wasn't accepted, and that was okay because I did have a supportive family. However, I think one of the most incredible things that I have memory of is the recurring set of patterns where I would go through almost like reliving a death of a previous life. And in this life, I was in actually a river, and I think I was a logger. And I would go through this whole motion. I was actually like a log driver, and I was standing on top of these logs. You know how they used to float in the river?
Right.
And I would be jumping across them. And this is like, me in my little bed as a little girl, and I would eventually sink down in the water. I'd struggle. And I remember the visceral feeling of the bark. I remember all of it as though it's just as tactile as this here now. And that's why it stuck so much. And eventually what would happen is I'd go under the water, and then I would come up. And it was like a gateway. I mean, I try not to analyze too much, but this is my experience. And that I would go up and I would be with this sort of group of guardians, but it was totally, and I say guardians because they did feel parental. They did feel bigger than me, but they did feel like family. And this was my gateway, and I don't fully know why, but I would go up, and I was actually able to see Earth, and it was probably the size of, like, if you were to hold your hand up in front of your face and hold a little circle, that's how big it was. And I used to have long conversations with these beings. There was actually like a tube that I could go back and forth in, and at the time Mighty Mouse was kind of cool, and I got to see that occasionally. And that Mighty Mouse had this amazing way of punching through the time-space barrier. And it felt like when I went through this tube, and I understand it now because I've gone on to study quantum physics and things like that, it felt like I was rushing through like a thing of hard packed sand. There was total resistance, but I would come out on the other side and I'd be able to hang out and, have this time. And I would go back and forth, but there came a time where they kind of said, you can't keep doing this. And I had to make the choice of actually staying on Earth. And so I figured it out. I mean, I had this new consciousness. I had the consciousness of a child that was really playful and just wanted to play. And so there was a lot that went on there, but there was also, my family's validation as I grew up, with light and just with extrasensory abilities that were validated, just talking and being honest. So.
Were your parents or grandparents intuitive?
Yeah, my mom was. She's moved on from this plane. But yeah, and it was kind of really taboo, I think, in her time to talk about these things because we're still living in the memory of times where, witches were burned. There's still legislation. I mean, the word witch is very powerful. It's very loaded in saying, that a lot of seers or people with these abilities were just, heathens or whatever. But my mom, when I was a teenager and things started really picking up, and I went to her, she went, okay, I've been waiting for you to come to me. And I mean, she always knew. But yeah, it is inherited through bloodline, and I do also understand since certain regression experiences that you do, like I remember choosing my mom, and I love her.
Mm. Ooh, I can definitely validate that whole thing with the going through sand.
Yeah,
That
it's hard to
recently
pack.
started happening to me, and so far twice.
Mm-hmm.
The second time it happened to me, I was having an out-of-body experience, and I said, I want to go visit Tom. And then
Okay.
I went through the concrete turned into like this whirlpool thing, and I went through it. And then when I came to the other side, I didn't come to Tom now, but I went to Tom in the 1980s.
Oh, cool.
And I don't know if I described him correct. What do you think,
He
Doctor?
described me pretty close to the T from what I looked like in the early '80s.
Were you wearing an AC/DC shirt?
Oh no.
Oh.
No, but he was
I
wearing
did
a leather
listen to
jacket. Yeah, so that was really weird for me because I was like, no, not this Tom. I want Tom now. But I
Well,
guess,
that's so funny. That's so interesting because from what I've seen through different experiences is that it's like strata. Like you look at, say, a fragmented part of the road or a cliff when you're driving along the road, and there's all these layers, and that actually all these layers are actually all happening at the same time. The
yeah,
Tom that was then is still happening. And, I mean, I try not to puzzle myself too much about the memories that come up about past lives and all of this, but that it's still happening. There is, in one sense, there is no time and space, and that you can totally access all lives and all knowledge from any point.
yeah. So let's go on to the part with your friends, the Elf Kingdom.
Oh, yeah.
How did that come about?
Um, in a really mischievous way. In a wonderful way. And I really, just to say this, is that, they're here with me now, and that I really feel from my heart that I'm speaking into this dimension, into the third, and all these ones reverberating out on behalf of this kingdom. And it is vast, and it's been almost forgotten. And that for myself, I didn't believe in it at all until I came to this land that I'm on now. And it's a tremendous story, and I've been writing about it, and I've been trying to get it down to 800 words for this great publication called The Fairies and Angels magazine that Adrian Dumas has put out. And that's been a bit of a challenge because it is a story. But basically, what happened is that, I had contact with, various beings growing up, but, I was kind of a tomboy. I was really into rocks and crystals. Like, my parents could not drive by a gravel pile without me going, pull over, like I wanted to just, it was a really strong calling. And in my, early 20s, I was in university doing my studies, and being from Canada, we do tree planting up there. The north of Canada is absolutely devastated, and there's reforestation going on. It's basically a tree farm that's going on, and it's a massive it's just deforestation. I mean, it's a mess. That's what my occupation was before coming into this. I did it for 7 seasons as a bushworker. So I would go into the north forest for several months at a time. We go into cities, little towns occasionally, but we were really totally off the grid. We had generators and all that. But prior to my contact with this here on this land, I've been in the bush, that's what we call it, for about 4 months. And I had taken time off, and I went to the World Science and Spirit Transformation Conference here at ESETI, and that had just sufficiently blown my mind, so I decided to come back for some self-mastery classes because I felt so drawn to this land.
So was that the 2009 or 2000?
2 years ago, about 2 years ago, yeah.
Yeah, 2009.
Yeah, so a lot has developed since then, but the initial contact happened, from, because it all fits together. It's a magnificent puzzle. I mean, you guys know this. You're living. So basically, I came back to investigate. I felt very drawn to this land. I never really felt, and I know a lot of people feel it here, it feels more like home than a lot of places you've been. And the reason is because it's a frequency that's being held here, and there's bridges that are being gapped between various kingdoms that are all really on the other side. But we're kind of the ones out of the loop. So basically what happened is that I, being a camper, being a bush lady or whatever, is that I went and parked myself under like the most ancient tree. I was just like, this is the spot. And I went down and I set up my tent, and the day went on, and the energy was really strong. And I had just been learning like how to navigate the world with my abilities. I suppressed them for a long time. So ESETI was a really safe haven for me. So I was really feeling like strong energies, and I was like, I need to sleep. And this happens to a lot of people when they get here. They just go, whoa, I gotta lay down. So I went to bed pretty early, and I woke up in the night, and I had to fly off my tent so I could see the stars up through the trees. And I heard small footsteps outside my tent, and I was really familiar with energetic signatures of wild animals, from cougars to bears to raccoons, squirrels. And these footsteps really were not of an animal. The energetic signature was not of an animal. There was no scent. And I really feel that I'm quite adept in familiarizing myself with the wilderness. So I could feel this energy coming off, but I could hear the steps, and they sounded like human steps, but they were very small. And I'm laying there on my stomach, and my body was kind of like, my heart was pounding because I could feel this. But I also saw that it was an opportunity to totally move beyond fear. And I kind of lifted myself up, and I looked out through my screen towards this tree, and I saw something I don't think I would have ever imagined could exist in this dimension. But it was clearly in this dimension, and I was fully awake because I stayed awake for a while. I got up, I walked around, I checked it out. But anyways, I looked at my fly, and there was a being probably about 3 feet tall that was just exuding the kind of joy that it's hard to compare it to anything. And that, say, here's an experience. Like, I took psilocybin mushrooms when I was a teenager, and it was reminiscent of that. But this was like pure joy. Like, I haven't taken a lot of drugs in my life. This is not something that was a hallucination. This was a totally manifest in this dimension. And this being